Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. We've got Larry Taylor on his mountaintop, spyglasses on, searching the world for the news. There's a lot of paranormal stuff going on, too, and we talk about it sometimes, but we don't really ever get to it because the news is all over the world now and rapidly accelerating on worldly things. But there are a lot of unworldly things going on. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Hey, Stuart. Just hanging out on my mountain.
Tell you what, we got thunderstorms here today. Tonight, one's coming overhead right about now. I wanted to get in. Well, you brought up a Bible code. You said there's a new one. Let's talk about that first, because that's kind of in the paranormal reign anyway, or realm. I don't think people realize the mathematical continuity of the Bible, which absolutely proves that no human being ever came up with it. I mean, the Bible was written over what, Larry, 1,200 or more years? People who didn't even know each other, and yet the mathematical continuity is from Genesis all the way through to the book of Revelation. And there's just no way. I mean, I don't know why people can't get that through their head, that this is not a book where maybe. This is really a book of, yes, it is, and you better be paying attention to it. Anyway, what is this Bible code of Glaserson now?
It's very interesting, actually. It's Richard Shaw posted it on his website, and I posted it as a Vimeo. But Glaserson ran a code, start of the Hamas War on Terror, run in 2014, and then he began to run some recent matrices, and it's very interesting. Let me read them to you involving
sure.
Hillary Clinton. Number 1, Hillary and servers. Number 2, Comey covers up. Number 3, for the mail. Number 4, making use by their foundation. Number 5, servers. What do you think, Stuart? It sure sounds like the Torah code literally had the Hillary and Comey's IDs, and what they did.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Washington establishment is so corrupt, they're off the cliff already. It's total insanity. They're liars, they're communists, and I don't know why the American people can't figure this one out. What we're watching, folks, is a communist coup. This has been laid out and planned for years. The United Nations is nothing but a communist operation. It operates under a communist charter. Most people just aren't aware of it. And of course, when you're dealing with a communist, you're dealing with a person who will lie right to your face. Usually they tell you the opposite of what's going on. And not only will they lie right to your face, but they enjoy it. And they think you're an idiot because you believe it. And this is where the American people are basically right now. And this is kind of interesting, Larry, because I got an email from somebody. I had said, well, why don't the American people do something? And what should they do? My advice is, at this point in time, they know all about you anyway. Everybody has data. I want to get into that. They've been surveilling the American people for years and years. It's not new. They know everything about everybody. And if you were to, I think there's even a website, isn't there, Larry, where you can get your FBI report. I don't know what you have to pay to get it, but it's not much. And you can look at your FBI file and see all the data they've collected against you. My attitude towards that, if they want to know about me, they can just read their Bible. And that's kind of an open book for me. I mean, that's the way it is. If they don't like it, too bad. they're going to find out the hard way. The Bible absolutely is true, was true, will always be true. And I don't say that because I just believe it. I say that because I know it for a fact. When the Lord reveals himself to a person, you then understand what is really going on this planet and the corruption. And that, of course, Trump is right in the middle of this, exposing all of this corruption. It's just amazing. And you would think with all this stuff like Mueller and Rosenstein and all these other crooks are, they're all walking around. And here we have this poor guy Manafort. He's in jail right now. He's in prison. I don't hear any hue and cry about that. Oh, the guy was a crook. Well, so wasn't Hillary Clinton. So wasn't Bill Clinton. So aren't the rest of them. Do you see any of them in jail? This is the one thing that really bothers me out there, folks. There's one thing that bothers me more than anything. Nobody who is a real criminal and involved in a communist coup to take down not only our president, but this country as well. Nobody's doing anything about it, including President Trump, who could instantly request all kinds of things, but he's not doing it. And that really, really, really bothers me. In view of Psalm 2, the kings of the earth and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands from us. Let us cast their cords away. I'm paraphrasing. And yet, the Lord says, I will set my son on my holy mountain, and I will hold these rich communist, rich men, socialists, I will hold them in contempt, and I will destroy them. Now, I don't know how these rich men, I know Daniel the prophet says that the wicked will never understand. I guess they can't. I guess they're blocked from understanding. But you would think, Larry, when you've got a prophecy 2,500 years old, and it's coming to pass, and you've got rich guys that are very, very intelligent, they're not stupid, and yet for some reason they can't put 2 and 2 together to come up with 4. They come up with 22 instead, 11. It's amazing. Anyway, what do you think?
Well, I think you're right. You were talking about, we could say, well, what if the timeline hadn't changed and we actually had Hillary sitting in the White House? You and I probably wouldn't be talking today, actually. We wouldn't even be doing a show. We might not even be breathing today. But I look at it like, Stuart, I know people argue with you about Babylon, but it's pretty much, there was a guy years ago, he's dead now, named Richard Coombs, and he wrote a book, America Babylon, and boy, people hated him, absolutely hated him for that. And I know you remember him, and, you posted a lot of that, but, when I sit back and I look at where we're going, it seems like America is going to the same place predicted in the Bible, with the exception of, instead of Hillary Clinton's road, we actually on this bypass, if you will, that we've got now, this timeline we're on, actually taking the Trump road. Now, it may get us there exactly the same place of destruction that's prophesied for Babylon. However, Trump's road might be cushioned a little bit with mercy and grace for a short time and give us a window to finish our work where Hillary's would never have gave us a moment in time, Stuart. What do you think?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, we'd be in prison camps if we were even alive. Hillary had it all laid out. The deep state had it all laid out. You might remember that when Hillary was running for president, she brought up the fact that the Americans needed to go to re-education camps. Folks, she said it. There's video on it of her saying that. We need to all be re-educated. That's what China does. That's what North Korea does, more or less. Actually, your re-education camps are nothing but torture and death camps. They just work you to death or kill you outright. And Hillary was all in favor. You know, the American people have poo-pooed FEMA camps, these Federal Emergency Management Agency camps. They are set up all over the United States. They're everywhere. And yet the people, I don't know. Maybe they got their blinders on, and where they just simply don't want to hear that kind of stuff. But it's true. And that's exactly what Hillary Clinton was speaking of. When she said re-education camp, she just reworded it. She really meant FEMA camps. And we're watching all kinds of stuff going on. It reminds me of the video up. I don't know if you saw it, Larry, about 1,400 kids being held in a Walmart store.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you may remember all the hoopla about Walmart and Jade Helm exercises in 2015, 2016, and how Walmart closed off, 200 and some odd stores, 235 I think it was, and nobody knew why. They kept saying, well, we got plumbing problems, which was a total lie. Walmart is a liar. Walmart is in there, the whole thing with the rich men. Psalm 2 does not exempt Donald Trump, doesn't exempt Kim, doesn't exempt Z, doesn't exempt Netanyahu, doesn't exempt anybody, doesn't even exempt Walmart, because the rich men are included in Psalm 2. So this is all a staged play. It's a deception. It's part of the delusion that God said, I'm going to cast upon this planet because you people have rejected Jesus Christ. You've rejected my prophecy, and Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy, and you've rejected it all. So here's what I'm going to do for humanity. I'm going to give you what you want. But when you eat of it, like when they were in the desert, so to speak, they got sick of what the Lord was giving them, you're going to get sick on it, but I'm going to force it down your throats because of the simplicity of the cross that you rejected. You would not admit you're a fallen creature. You would not admit you needed redemption. You would not admit that Jesus Christ was actually the Redeemer. That was all omitted or rejected by the American people by and large, and the world at large. So here we are. It is what it is. And what we're watching and all the wars and rumors of wars and peace and safety and peace and security, it's all part of prophecy. When they say peace and safety, which is actually, if you look up the word safety, it means security. And what are our leaders all saying? We need peace and security. What has the UN said? I got a video a guy sent me from Canada. It was amazing, of the UN having a meeting, and I think they were dealing with Israel, and we want to get into that, Larry. I know you said something about the UN being kind of nasty against Israel again. World leaders, one by one, in this video, got up, criticized Israel, and said we need peace and security. Peace and security. Over and over and over and over again, peace and security. We're here, folks. We're just going to watch how it goes down, because we're really not sure exactly how it's going to go down. But believe me, we are at the end of things. And like Larry says, this is probably just kind of a side road. The Lord put up on the main highway danger ahead and gave us a bypass. And it's named Trump as a road to follow on. But it's going to lead to the same place, because Trump isn't exempt either. And it doesn't mean he probably has no idea of what he's really up to. I'll give him that much anyway. And he's done a lot for the people here and there, but it's going to end up in a disaster. Anyway, my rant is over, Larry. What do you got?
Well, you mentioned the UN, and Konings International News posted a report today. It says the UN General Assembly condemns Israel for excessive force at the Gaza-Israeli border. It says after U.S. amendment censures Hamas is rejected, on procedural grounds by the UN General Assembly. So basically what I'm saying here is that the United Nations has chose to take the side of the world against Israel, and when the U.S. brought up the Palestinian trouble and situation, they were rejected. So the UN's against Israel. That's all it is. I mean, it's nothing else. And, of course, Netanyahu admitted, Netanyahu says the UN shames itself, as Nikki Haley called the UN morally bankrupt. So there you go, Stuart. What do you say?
Well, they are. They're totally bankrupt. It's a communist organization to begin with. It's total deep state, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, doesn't matter. Powers that be. The Bible identifies them all as the rich men of the earth. They're the ones that are setting all of this stuff up. The spiritual aspect behind it is called mystery. You'll find that in Revelation chapter 17, Mystery Babylon. There are two Babylons. There is the literal, physical Babylon, and the parameters identify that exclusively as the United States of America, and also talks about actually the great city and the tall Tower of Glass, or Micah, as the Hopi Indians called it. And actually the Hopi Indians went there to warn the UN, and they were rejected for years. I think they finally did get in, but nobody paid any attention to the Hopis. What do Native Americans know anyway? That's their attitude. They don't know anything, and therefore they couldn't have anything worthwhile to tell them. They warned them. It isn't that people, even the Native Americans, have warned the American leaders that trouble is ahead and that we're going to be destroyed. And the destruction is well outlined in Isaiah 47, Jeremiah 50, 51, Revelation 18 for the physical aspects of it, and the spiritual aspects of it will just simply move back overseas when this is all done. So yeah, it's interesting how all of this works, and it's just too bad. I watch it, I weep when I did several videos on the American Babylon connection, why America's Babylon, and nobody really wanted them. We put it up free finally on our Angel Fall 923, and we've had, I think, over 30,000 people have viewed it, and we hope hundreds of thousands of people would view it so they'd educate themselves on the nation they're actually living in, so you can prepare for it. I don't think people are preparing. Do you, Larry? I just don't see it.
No, I don't either. I think people are rejecting the idea that we're going into a very troublesome time. And matter of fact, let me read this. Get your comment. Stan Deyo today actually, and I had a conversation today with Stan. We'll talk about later. But Stan Deyo's website today had a headline, and it's very interesting. It says incompetency on the EMP dangers, in other words, electromagnetic pulse dangers, endangering America as Obama-era holdovers in the Defense Department set on 7 unclassified reports the population of the U.S. should read. And actually, this is standale.com, and also thehill.com has a report on it. Stuart, is the government and the holdovers from Obama holding information that would warn America about an EMP? Are they holding it back?
Yes, no question at all. Their goal is to bring America down, and they'll do it by one way or another. It's the spirit of iniquity that the Bible talks about. It's a mystery, the mystery of iniquity. How a handful of people can take millions of people and kill them all, and the millions of people don't even rise up and stop them. It's amazing. And indeed, as the Bible does say, it is a mystery that can happen. But, yeah, they are withholding all this information, probably because it won't be an EMP from North Korea, and it won't be an EMP from China or Russia. It'll be an EMP from the deep state, global deep state. When I flew for General Electric Company long hours ago, many days, many moons. Too many moons. I don't even want to think about it. But what we were told was there was going to be no major war. That was during the time when we were under the communist Russian threat of a missile attack, and the kids were being taught to dive under their desks and whatnot for a nuclear attack. We were told over and over again, the flight crews, by the executives themselves, that there is not going to be any war. Not going to be one. Well, how did they know? Because they operate under a whole different system. These things are all planned. Absolutely nothing happens of importance that was not planned, allowed or approved by Satan and by the Lord himself. Remember, the Lord has an agenda. He has a plan. He says, I have proposed it, and you're not going to stop me. He's talking to humanity. He says, I don't care. Try and stop me all you want. Not going to work, because I'm superior to you people, whether you believe it or not. And I don't think people do believe that there is an agenda underfoot. It's clearly, if you just watch, you can see it in operation. I remember there was a lady, and I think she was in New Hampshire or Vermont. But anyway, this was during the Bush-Cheney years, and she emailed and said that the Lord was going to stop any attack on Iran and Iraq, I believe it was. I can't remember, but I think it was Iran maybe, that Dick Cheney was planning. Every time he tried to do it, he was totally frustrated. Do you remember the nukes that were removed out of, what was that air base up in North Dakota? It's a B-52 base. I can't think of the name of it right now, but
I know
but you remember the nukes?
About.
Yeah, remember the nukes disappearing? Well, it was for this war they were planning. Well, the Lord said, no, not going to happen. Everybody was pointing at 9/23/2015. Movies, TV shows, cartoons, everything. 9/23/2015, this is going to be the end. Lo and behold, the Lord has a sandstorm in Israel delaying one of their feast days by 2 days, which was a 2-year delay. Then in 2017, we have another year delay, so I don't know whether it's going to be much more delay. I think we're going to know by September of this year whether there's more delay or whether we've misinterpreted some things, which is always a possibility. But, we're coming up on trouble. Anyway, I drifted a little far afield there. What else you got on this sort of thing?
Well, I was going to, you and I both have shared about a movie series called Jericho that came out in 2007, and after I'd shared some information after watching it, you watched it the other day, and what's your conclusions about that show Jericho?
It's odd that it was made 10 years ago, and they mentioned that the missiles we fired back on North Korea and Iran. In fact, I just heard that last night when I was watching it, and it's a really good show, folks. It's called Jericho. It's a whole series that was on TV, and I think there's 2 of them, aren't there? 2 years running or something?
Yeah, season 1 and season 2. They really wasn't going to do a season 2 because season 1 revealed too much, but there was an upsurge of people that wanted season 2, so they did it, and that really let out information about blaming a false flag attack in America using some Russians, this time using Russian nuclear weapons, and blaming it on Iran and North Korea and destroying those countries completely.
Yeah, which is interesting because even Deagle.com has North Korea's population down to about 0, along with the United States. People have been wondering, of course, you got the Georgia Guidestones, folks. Don't ever think that these people do not have a eugenics system in mind, a depopulation in mind for the United States. They need to depopulate the United States to the tune of many millions. And I believe they have the power and to do it. In fact, I was reading today of a new strain of bug that they think is really going to be virtually unstoppable. So we're getting all of these things thrown at us every day, practically every night, and about disease and viruses and all of this. And do you remember, Larry, the CDC and I believe the military, and I know even in England, they were practicing zombie attacks? Why would they do that unless they know something is coming that's going to kind of neutralize people's brains?
Yeah, I remember that. Even World War Z came out, and that was nothing but zombies everywhere, you know.
Yeah. So is this going to be some sort of a virus? Is this going to be some sort of an EMP device they've worked on? I mean, DARPA, the Defense Department's DARPA, where they do all this research, Black Ops and everything else, they've been into all this kind of stuff, and they've been into it for a long, long time. It's just too bad to watch, because I know the Lord loves humanity, and he just wishes they would wake up and smell the roses. But I guess like Daniel says, they can't. They won't. The wise will understand, but the wicked will never understand. So we got to go through this new world order by hook or by crook. It doesn't really matter who's in charge. We're going there, according to the Bible. And the United Nations, by the way, is the fourth beast of Daniel. I just posted on NightShadowsRadio.com part one of an article which proves that the usual interpretation of Daniel chapter 7, being Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, is totally erroneous. It couldn't possibly be true. And all folks, if you're serious, and NightShadowsRadio.com is only for serious people. If they're not serious, they might as well not bother to come look at it, because this is for people who really want to know, want to study, want to get out their Bibles, want to get out their Strong's Concordances and look up words and find out what the Lord really told them. And if people would do that, we would have a whole different America, I think, Larry. What do you think? I mean, if people were not apostatizing, this country would be totally different.
Oh, absolutely. I heard someone say today, talking on One American News, they were talking about America and what is happening, like Paul Manafort. He was set up by outside the Constitution committee called Mueller's team. And I even likened it, Stuart, to, Tommy Robinson in the UK. We're following this very closely. They snatched him up, in front of a building warning the UK about the Muslim invasion, and literally took him, and within hours he was already in prison, and they've now moved him to a prison that's a Muslim, heavy populated Muslim prison, and put him in there where an imam has already issued the kill order or the hit order against Tommy Robinson, and this is all outside the norm in the UK, and the people in the UK are finding out they don't have a real government. They're living under Sharia, basically, and at the same time in America, we've got Paul Manafort, who's been now taken off the street and by a judge placed in jail until his trial. And, what we're seeing, Stuart, is we're seeing an operation outside the Constitution of the United States, which Mueller's team is, and we're seeing the attacks against Trump outside the Constitution of the United States operating. And, Stuart, what we find, and this is just my opinion now, what we find is the American people need to wake up to the fact we are no longer living in a country governed by laws under the Constitution. Our government is not, I repeat, not following the Constitution. It has two standards. One, who's the elite and get away with everything, including the government officials, and then the poor people that complain they go to prison. We're finding a comparison between the UK, Stuart, and the U.S. We're all done. We really literally have already lost our countries.
Oh, yeah, no question. One of the parameters for America, Babylon, is lawlessness. And I remember George Bush made a comment that the Constitution was just a piece of paper and we should rip it up. These people are totally lawless. They mock the American people. They hate the Constitution. They don't like the bands that tie them down, so they're busily with their knives cutting all those bands off, just like Psalm 2 says. We're not going to have Jesus Christ rule over us. We're going to do anything we want. The end justifies the means. We'll kill anybody that gets in our way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they will get away with it up to a point. And they do not realize that Jesus Christ really is alive and well and watching all of this. And he's already warned them. Psalm 2 is a warning to the rulers of this planet, kings and rulers of the earth. It's a warning directly to them. They have no excuse whatsoever. And that's what the sad part is. They're throwing away their 2-3 years of power in the elite structure for an eternity in eternal hell. And if they don't think hell exists, they soon are going to find out that it does. I was shown a little bit of hell, and I'll tell you what, nobody who saw what I saw wouldn't be on their bellies screaming for mercy. It's horrible. And people say, well, how could a God of love do that? He doesn't. He's warned everybody. It's your choice. You know, everybody has free will, and they can make their choices, and that's just the way it goes. And that's why I get sad when I see these things happening in America, and when I watch the Supreme Court and how they mock God, how they mock everything. These poor people have no idea where they're headed. Just like Jesus says that the blind lead the blind, and they have no concept at all of where they're going. Humanity's a fallen race. Everything we're watching proves it. And yet they continue on in their whoredoms, if you want to call them that. I guess you could call them political whoredoms. And like you were saying, totally lawless. I mean, there's just absolutely no regard for the law whatever. And when you look at Mueller and his team, you watch Hannity on Fox News, all these people, nothing is done, no matter how much screaming is done. Nothing is done to these people. Sessions, for example, Attorney General Sessions, what's he done? Nothing. The IG report that just came out, well, it doesn't show any bias, and yet, I don't know, maybe they think the American people are so absolutely stupid that they're going to get away with it. And unfortunately, whether they're stupid, naive, or in denial doesn't matter. The Bible says they are going to get away with it. Deep state is going to get away with this. And then the hammer comes down upon the rich men of the earth. And it's kind of interesting if you read in the book of Enoch what it says about what happens. That when Jesus comes back, whoever has survived this get down on their knees and say, well, we're going to amend our ways. We're the leaders, and we'll amend our ways. And Jesus sends his angels to collect them all, and they go into eternal hellfire. So it's not that they don't have the information. It's not that God has not provided ample warning, not only to Christians but to the world at large. And it's not his fault that they have all rejected it. What do? You know, I'm sure you're a police officer. You probably warned some thief somewhere to quit. They don't. So then what do? Well, you stop it. Well, that's the Lord's point of view. You warn them, you warn them, you warn them, and then you stop it. And he's about to stop it, I'm afraid. Anyway, What else we got?
Well, I was just going to mention the fact that you got an email, and of course I found it about the same time, and some reports have came out about the sudden report of the Saudi Crown Prince Salman. You know, he's back on the scene, the world scene again. He surfaced, of all places, in Moscow, Russia. And Stuart, what's interesting is the fact that, you know, he was missing since about the middle of April, I guess it was, when they had the reported assassination attempt at the Royal Palace, you know, in Riyadh. And, you know, but he has surfaced. I posted today on my blog photographs of him. And, of course, he was there with Putin, meeting and talking with Putin. There's been some interesting information going on in the Middle East. You know, Iran is rebuilding bases and claiming now that they are simply going to attack Israel from Syria and not Iran, you know, like that would save them. But they are planning on it. And, of course, there are reports that Netanyahu and Salman have been talking to Putin about the Syrian situation. And at the same time, you know, Trump has a proposed meeting with Putin, who the whole world don't want him to meet. That's so odd,
yes,
sir. You know, nobody wants Trump to be successful in preventing World War III. It's like everybody would rather have World War III and see America destroyed and most of the world than really to save anything and Trump get some credit. But, you know, that's the way it is.
Well, you know what's interesting? Trump had a kind of impromptu, I don't know if you call it news conference, but he made some comments. And somebody asked him about, you know, how come you're cozying up to North Korea? And his reply was, well, do you want a nuclear bomb going off in your front yard? They had no reply to that.
Yeah, I saw that, Stuart. That was at a news conference this morning, and one of the press began to rant about the fact that he took it easy, it appeared, on Kim Jong-un in Singapore and didn't attack him. And Trump said, well, he said, sometimes you have to do the best way you can. He says, would you rather have a nuclear weapon go off in your front yard and kill your family? Is that what you want? So basically what Trump's doing is he's working a deal, if you will. And of course, yes, you know, we got something from the Philippines a little bit exposing that, and you know, you can read that whenever you want to.
Do you have it in front of you? I don't have it right in front of me, no. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't.
Read that.
But I can just give the gist. I don't have it in front of me because it's on my computer, and I'm not in my computer room. And it's
I got
shut
it.
down.
I got it.
Okay.
Here's what it says. The Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve walked with God. Now, this is in reference to Stan Dale's show with us not very long ago. It is in a different dimension. There is a portal to that place in the area Brother Stan visited, which is guarded by an angelic being. The two trees, a tree of life and a tree of knowledge of good and evil, are present in that garden on the other side of the portal. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
and the question was, is the portal near where you live for evil or good? Speaking about you, Larry, because you got a evil portal up around there in Heavener area, I think. That's all pretty much, what do you call it? Evil? Demonic?
Yeah, I would say it's a troublesome portal, and I've done some, if you will, anointing and some works there that have ejected some of those, and you know people that saw them leave. And I
know that was amazing.
Yeah, just to qualify this is coming from a young son of a pastor in the Philippines, and this young son named Sam. You know, I don't know his exact age. I'm assuming 10 to 13 years old maybe. But he has a prayer life, and he has the Lord has spoken to him a number of times, and I do believe him. I'm not asking other people to, but I do. and I've got confidence in what he tells me. And this was an email that came to me after our interview with Stan, and he shares a number of things that he was either shown by an angel or the Lord told him himself. Go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, the next one was the Lord told Sam that an asteroid did move Antarctica to its present position, as Brother Stan correctly identified, and beings, human and others, were frozen and since been reanimated. The 14-foot steps do correctly reveal the presence of giant beings more than 30 feet tall. I worked that out because the average person step here is probably between, 10 and 12 inches each step. We'll take the average person then as being about 6 feet tall. So you just multiply a 14-foot, you multiply 6 feet by 14, you come up with around 60 to 80 feet tall. And that more or less what the Book of Enoch sort of talks about. I mean, these people were not really short. You wouldn't want to meet one. And I've had dreams of them, and I know you have too, Larry, where they were hunting me.
Yeah, same here.
And I think they are going to come back. I don't know if they'll be that tall because I'm not sure the atmosphere that we have now and the gravity that we have now, I don't know. We're going to find out, I think, because even Red Elk talked about the release of the long walkers, that they were going to break through and they're going to come up to the surface. The book of Isaiah talks about that. Then, let's see. So he says, more than 30 feet tall, according to the Lord, they will soon appear on the surface of the earth. Then Sam was shown a vision of Elijah on top of a mountain, not his home mountain in heaven. He was angry and was tearing at his robes. North Korea under control of China. Summit was an act. Trump fully is aware of it. As you say, not asking you to believe these things, but good for you to meditate on them. Well, that's about true. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, there's so much going on. It's weird. I got something here I want you to comment on, Larry. Go ahead.
I was just going to, before we got off of that, I was just going to comment that that pastor sent me what his son Sam had received from the Lord, and I called Sam today. I called Stan Deyo today and shared that with him, and he was really very interested. Matter of fact, Sam basically said the Lord verified the information about the location in Africa and talked about that being a portal location and an earthbound, the earthbound end of the portal was at that location, and the heavenly end of the portal, another dimension, was guarded by an angel. So it was very interesting. It verified Stan's work in that area, and at the same time, the Lord gave verification of what Stan had, the research Stan did on Antarctica and where Antarctica had came from and what its present situation was, and that was incredibly
interesting.
Stan was very excited, actually. For someone, a young man in another land to verify it through the Lord. So it was really incredible. I mean, we do get verification sometimes, but it's not every day the Lord speaks to you.
Well, what was interesting is that human and other, which would verify all these ancient writings of visitations from, the Native Americans call them the Star People, the Star Nation people. All over the world, there was an arrival. It's in the Bible, by the way, in Genesis. You find it in Genesis. And we're about to have another arrival. And if people don't really want to believe we have problems, here's something from Linda Moulton Howell's website. Latest Gentech DNA results on the three-fingered bodies that were found in Pampa Nazca region of Peru. And the DNA comes back, does 95% primate and 5% unknown. Does that mean it's an alien hybrid? The DNA analysis information that came back suggested that Maria, that's what they've named this little creature that has 3 fingers, very long fingers and a kind of an alien-shaped head, they did not say human. They simply said 95% primate and 5% left unknown. She has 3 fingers, 3 toes, and at least 11 anatomical anomalies. She has to be some form of either a mutation or she has to be a hybrid. They've got a picture of her. Isn't that interesting?
Well, it is, Stuart. And as a matter of fact, if you remember our interviews with Richard Shaw, he and L.A. Marzulli brought back some of the cone-headed DNA.
Yes.
And they found the same thing, Stuart. Some of it appeared to be not human, but human, in other words, not Adamic particularly, but humanoid, and the other unknown. So they've got to be hybrids. And if people remember in Genesis, where it talks about the Nephilim, those
yes.
are also hybrids, you know?
Yeah. And here's something I dug up, and I think you probably sent it to me, supernatural attacks. Paranormal expert and researcher Rosemary Ellen Goulet, I guess, discussed frightening nocturnal visits by sinister entities. It's the bedroom visitation of a very formidable, hostile, negative entity that terrorizes people and literally vampirizes their life force. He said, noting the assaults can be both psychological, physical, or sexual. Filmmaker Paul Tayet joined in the second hour to talk about his documentary, Supernatural Assault, which examines the frightening experiences of victims who have encountered these dark entities. Folks, this is all very, very real, and I don't know why people can't wrap their mind about some of this. Let me just read you, and Larry, you can comment anywhere, just break in. Here's one, St. Clair County, a Bigfoot sighting. And these things are big. That's just one of them. Another Bigfoot in what they call Thumb, Michigan, I think. Here's another one, unknown anomaly observed in Poland. Then we have huge bat-winged being descending from a UFO. Now, what's your take on that? My immediate thought was, okay, this ties together fallen angels, demonic activity, and the manifestation of these kind of creatures. Because they're certainly not friendly. What's your take on something like that? I mean, I see a connection here between the UFOs and these creatures.
Well, not only that, Stuart, but a lot of connections are also made between these creatures and portals or other dimensions.
Yes.
I mean, this all seems to run together in the same thread. And as you know, and of course, I possibly could laugh at people saying I saw a Bigfoot, but having seen a Bigfoot myself in broad daylight, I don't laugh. And many other people have too, and I've interviewed some of those. And of course, we've interviewed people on your show here that have walked up to saucer craft and explains all of that. And so it's very intriguing.
Well, yeah, these things, folks, are going to increase because the veils are thinning, as Red Elk said. And what I'm talking about here are the veils thinning between the dimensions. In other words, the dimensional, there's kind of a zigzag in now. We're kind of merging once in a while. There have been way too many incidences. I think I reported on the one where a lady was flying an aircraft, and I think she was going over to the Bahamas or someplace like that. And the tower people, the air traffic people, had her in sight, and they were talking to her, and she couldn't find the airport. And the controller said, well, you're coming right up on it. You're going to be flying right over it. And she said, there's nothing there but forest. Nothing. I'm not seeing anything. It's all just forest. There's no airport. There's no strip. There's no nothing. It's just forest. And they said, you're right over it. Just tip your wings and look down and you'll see it. She said, no, there's nothing here. It's just forest. It's just woods. And so she just kept going. And they said, you're going away from here. They never found her again. So what was it? And then we had that weird I think it was Eastern airliner jet that disappeared from radar for 8 minutes coming into Miami, I think it was. And when it reappeared, they landed as normal. Everybody's watched. I mean, the FAA inspectors were right there. And everybody's watch was 8 minutes off. How do you explain this sort of thing? And there's been a lot of tales about what's going on in the Bermuda Triangle, some of which are extremely weird encounters. So I guess my take is we have no concept, really, of what kind of a universe, or multiverse, I should say, that we're living in. But when you see huge bat-winged beings descending from a UFO, I think you can start to tie together what we're actually dealing with. And we're dealing with a deception of the fallen angels and demonic powers. And they've already laid well in the strong delusion of Thessalonians. And 95%, maybe even more, the human race is going to go into it. Another one, large back-wing humanoid reported over Coachella Valley in California. This huge thing. Another one, enormous winged man seen over downtown Milwaukee. A lot of reports in Milwaukee and Chicago. So this is going to increase, don't you think, Larry?
Yeah, I think we're going to see increases. At the same time, Stuart, we really can't leave out the upright walking coyotes or dogs or whatever they are, dog men. Some
yes.
are calling them, phenomenal creatures that are beyond explanation, and they're being seen everywhere, even close to me in a little town called Tallahassee, Oklahoma. They're seeing these upright walking coyotes and all these activities.
Yeah, didn't Augusto had one around his house, didn't he, if I recall right?
Yeah, his wife watched it, and as a matter of fact, Stuart, you know, the one in Montana, you know, they actually killed that one, and they don't know what it is.
Oh. Well, I think we're going to see a whole lot more of this kind of stuff. It's going to be scary, and, you know, it's getting more and more dangerous as time goes on because they're turning more and more violent. There's a lady up here in Wisconsin that I think has written about 5 books concerning the weirdness in the state of Wisconsin. We're noted for it. Mainly not only Bigfoot, but Wolfman, weird entities that show up, and they are encountered. In fact, somebody did a movie on, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's about a werewolf that is spotted from time to time. So what is going on, folks? I mean, are people just seeing things? I mean, it's like the UFO. You know, people mock all of that. So I was reading about the Travis Walton case and what happened. And they ridiculed him for years, even though he'd taken all kinds of lie detector tests, everything, passed them with flying colors. But people do not want to believe this sort of thing. I don't think they want to believe that we're not number one on the food chain and that these creatures can come in. I mean, some of these wolfmen reports, people just vanish. They disappear. We got to get into that. There's a guy that's written a book called 411 about people vanishing. And one of the weird ones was a case where there was an old guy who was a tracker, and he was on their rescue teams. And when this man who wrote the 411 books, I think there's 3 or 4 of them now, he interviewed this old fellow. And he asked, well, what's really going on with this particular case where the person went missing? His reply was he either went up or he went down, but he's not here on Earth. That's kind of an interesting comment. And most of these vanishings are people by themselves. They might be in a group, but they either lag behind or they run off ahead, and they're never seen again. And then we had that report, I think we reported on it, Larry, where the guy was, I think, in New Hampshire or someplace, showed up in California, and he still had his skiing clothes on.
Yeah.
And he was very confused. He didn't know how he ever got there. So there's something really strange beginning to happen, and I think this is what Jesus meant when he said that the times of the end were going to be very, very strange, very, very deceptive, and really what he's telling everybody, you only have the Bible to rely on. You don't have any other book. You don't have anything else. You only have the Bible to rely on. And people really ought to get their nose into it. So, I don't know. Any comments here, Larry?
Yeah, I was going to say that, you remember I was shown a saucer craft full of missing people that were being taken to Mars, and we're not going to come back, and that's a whole new story, but that kind of dips into your Mars situation and news on Mars, and also, we've had so many cases of missing people that are never seen again, and people begin to wonder, where did they go? So there is some place that some of these people are going that you won't hear from them again, and it reminds me, Stuart, of Tithonia.
Yes, and I was wondering when you saw that, I don't know if you know about Alternative 3. I did a movie called Alternative 3. We tried to put it on YouTube, and they absolutely refused it. They said, this cannot be seen any place in the world. They refused us to put it up there. Alternative 3, folks, is, I think, very, very real, and they know it's very, very real, but it's about what they call batch consignments, where they take whole groups of people and they take them to Mars, and they're working on Mars. Mars has an atmosphere totally different than what you've been taught. It's not so much of a red planet. It's kind of, the sky is like pale blue. It's not all red. But anyway, I did several movies, or one called Project Red Star, which went 0. It never went anywhere. I should probably post that. Anyway, Larry, I guess we're coming up on the end. What's your final comment to the people?
Just keep your seatbelt on, because we really are in for a ride, folks.
That's an understatement, I think. And that ne'er-do-well No-Eyes who wrote Phoenix Rising, one of the things she mentioned was that the carnival rides and stuff, there were going to be a lot more accidents. Guess what? There are accidents now happening all over the place on these carnival rides. In fact, there was an article today about a roller coaster that went awry. So weird accidents are beginning to happen as the hand of the Lord is removed, and his angels are simply not protecting the American people anymore. He's turned his back. We turned our back on him, and so now we have to reap the consequences. So anyway, Larry, thanks so much for coming on. And we'll have to get into that batch consignments, Alternative 3, and where you were shown of people being taken to Mars. I think it's much more real than people realize. Anyway, thanks for listening, folks. And heads up, your redemption draweth nigh, and we'll be back with you next week, the Lord willing. Take care.